Welcome to the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast. Join us as we dive into the world of endurance sports, exploring everything from nutrition to training and how these elements shape your everyday life, both on and off the race course. Hosted by Coach Justin, certified run and triathlon coach and owner of Tabula Rasa Racing, along with Coach Katie, a registered dietitian specializing in sports nutrition and owner of Fuel to Run. We're here to share insights and real-world advice to help you thrive on your journey. Here at the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast is where your journey begins. Endurance Athlete Journey podcast. I'm your host, Coach Justin. I'm here with Coach Katie. Today is episode 55, and it is December 30th of 2025, and happy almost New Year's. So today we are talking about race calendars. Now is about the time that you're probably sitting down, you're trying to figure out, okay, what do I want to do in 2026? If you haven't already done it, some of you A-type personalities have probably already set your race calendar already, but some of the other people are probably still trying to figure out what it is that they want to do. Some things are still up in the air because some registrations haven't opened yet. So we wanted to come to you today to bring you a coach's perspective and an endurance athlete perspective on how we pick our race calendars and how we help our athletes pick their race calendar, because there's nothing worse with having too many races on the calendar, and so you're not really training for anything in particular. You can't have the specificity that you really want in order to maximize and optimize your performance for a particular race. There's also nothing worse than having too few races on the calendar where you're not really testing things out. It may be a little bit hard to maintain motivation because you feel like, oh, my race is so far away, or I've already done the race, and now what are you going to do with the rest of your year? So sometimes trying to find that sweet spot of how many races you can schedule for, how many you can afford budget-wise, how many of those times that you can ask your body to reach peak performance in order to really go out on race day and show what you have. Also, with those people that you love and that you spend time with, how many races can they really mentally and emotionally invest in, because they're supporting you, they're going with you, they're going to the races. If these races involve some kind of other logistics of traveling abroad or traveling, those people, your support crew, race with you. They may not be physically on the race course with you, but they're with you. And I can tell you that, I just finished Ironman Florida 70.3, and, my wife Stephanie went and my two kids went. And honestly, the race day was just as hard on them as it was on me almost. So trying to find a race calendar that everybody can be happy with takes a little bit of thought and planning. So we felt like now is a really good time to come to you with this episode and this particular topic and see how we can help you. So let's jump on in to episode 55 of Forming Your Race Calendar with the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast. Let's do a little bit of housekeeping before we kind of get too deep into this. We have our private Facebook group, which is the Endurance Athlete Journey group. We're trying to build out this community. Will be the location where we'll push bonus content. It's also a great way for you to reach out to us individually and also communicate and reach out to other members who listen to the podcast. And so we really encourage you to go out and join this group. It's simply just answer one question and it lets you right on in, but we'd love to build out this community. We're also active coaches. So if you're looking for a coach for 2026, if you're looking to try something new, or you're looking to just turn the reins over to somebody else because training plan creation is time consuming, there's always insecure questions around. It's like, oh, am I doing too much? Am I doing too little? And you want to turn that over to somebody else to help you and really kind of help you optimize your performance, please consider reaching out to us. You can reach out to Katie. Her website is fuel2run.com, or you can reach out to me, Coach Justin. I'm at tabularasaracing.com. Both of us have tons of content and coaching philosophies out there on our website, so please go out and check us out. We hope that you will consider us for your future endeavors. Also, wherever you're consuming your podcast content, we would love and greatly appreciate a review and a comment. We felt strongly from day one that we would not monetize this podcast, which means that we have no sponsors, we have no support. All of the fees and everything else of producing the podcast and storing it and releasing it come out of our own pocket. But we do it because we absolutely love this process. We love coming to you every single week, sharing free information with you and helping you along your journey. But if you could go out and just leave a simple comment and a review, it helps broaden the reach of the podcast and others will be able to find it. If you want to follow and subscribe to the podcast and share it with others that you think would benefit from particular topics, that'd be great. Let's help share this podcast with others. I believe that's it in terms of some housekeeping. So let's do just a little bit of chit chat. So Katie, how have you been feeling?
I've been okay. I'm feeling okay. My son just, is starting to get maybe sick, so I'm a little bit worried about right before Christmas. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It's just happens a lot this time of year, so I don't know. But
Yeah.
I'm doing good otherwise. I've been doing a lot of strength training recently, so kind of adding some strength and like kind of more some CrossFit style workouts just to kind of keep it interesting and different and along with some running. But I feel like I've been getting stronger. So that's good,
Well, yeah, that's important when it comes to like when you start to really train for a specific race.
Yeah,
That strength pays dividends.
I think so.
I
Yeah.
definitely can attest to that as well in my own.
Yeah, it's hard this time of year because you're strength training. Like I've been strength training a lot, so like my runs have been feeling like fatigue, like a little bit of
Hmm.
that fatigue or soreness or that like DOMS, like sort of delayed onset soreness. So I'll go out for a run and I'm like, oh, like it doesn't feel that good because I'm just doing strength training, well, sometimes 5 out of the 7 days, I'll do some sort of strength training or
Yeah.
sort of CrossFit style thing. So it's been challenging, but I know I don't know it'll play, or it'll pay off when I get to my marathon training build. But I just have to keep that in mind. And it's interesting. So it's just changing things up a little. And that really helps me stay motivated this time of year to not be doing like the same thing all the time and have the opportunity to do some things indoors so that I'm not forcing myself outdoors in the really crappy weather. Like I have an option to do something indoors
Yeah.
and not have to like rely too much on my treadmill. So it's been good. It's good.
Good.
So how about you? I know you have more you'll share on your race in your recap, but
Yeah, so we're pre-recording this, so this isn't going to be released until like
after,
later
but yeah.
on, but we haven't reached Christmas yet, so it's actually December 20th when we're recording this. So I'm just on the tail end of Ironman Florida 70.3. So this has been this is a recovery week for me, and it has been an emotional struggle to say the least. There's been no working out, no nothing, and this is probably the longest stretch of no no training, no workouts that I've had all year.
Mhm.
I think I took like 2 to 3 days off before I started training for Florida. And now I'm beyond those 3 days now. So this is the longest consecutive stretch of nothing going
Oh
on.
yeah.
And I mean,
It's hard.
I
Yeah.
know it's needed, but it's still a hard pill to swallow when you're kind of chomping at the bit. You just want to do something. So, but I committed to not doing anything. And so
I think that's good. I think
I'm
that's a
just
good thing
waiting for Monday
sometimes
to roll
because
around.
you are excited sometimes when you take the time off to or you do something even if it's not totally off, but you're just doing something a bit different, and then when you do get back to the
Yeah.
training, I think you're just more excited to do it because you were able to have that break, where I think if somebody's just continuously, we'll talk about that maybe a little bit today with planning, but I think
Yeah.
it's like if you're continuously signing up for races and, I don't know, I think even if you are taking some time off, I think if it's just going right back into the same old, sometimes that can make it hard to stay motivated. So having those times when you
Yeah.
do switch it up a little bit can be helpful. So, or just to take that time off is valuable. It's even
Yeah.
when you don't want to, even when you want to move. I do think, I mean, in your case, you have the injury. For
Yeah.
me, sometimes I will do um, short. outside, like, I will go walking, I'll try
Mhm.
to cap it, and so I'm not, like, going on a 3-hour walk, but I think that would get boring anyway, but I'll go out and, like, do a nature walk just to get out and move a little bit, but it's nothing strenuous, so sometimes I'll allow myself those, like, types of movement activities, but no strenuous exercise, but, I get it. You'll be you'll be fine.
Yeah.
I think you'll be better for it. Uh,
Honestly,
you don't wanna
the condition of the ankle has kept me from really kind of doing anything anyway, so I know
Right.
that even if I wanted to do something, I don't think I could have. I may have
Sure,
been able
sure.
to jump on the bike for a little bit, but that's about it. But I have been spending the past 3 days doing some contrast therapy at my gym.
Okay.
So I've been able to go in. We have an infrared sauna and a cold plunge tub. And so what I've been
Sure.
doing is like 20 minutes in the sauna and then go directly to the cold plunge and just get up to my knees in the cold plunge for like 10 minutes and then cycle back and forth, just kind of going back. Because it does put a lot of
Okay.
stress on the body when you start doing sauna and cold plunge, which is why I didn't do it during the training plan. But now is a good time to try and get, because I've been having some swelling in this ankle. And I think, with the sauna, it'll increase that blood flow. And then the contrast of
Yeah.
the cold will start to flush out some of that fluid. So I'm hoping that kind of
Hopefully, yeah.
happens. But
And it kinda gives
um,
you feel like I think when
I
you're
feel like I'm doing
injured,
something.
you
So
feel like
I'm
you're doing
actively
something,
doing
yeah.
something. So
Yeah. I
it's
think
better
that's the
than just
hard
kind of
part with
sitting around.
injury, is finding something to work towards, like, when you're injured, I think you're like, "Oh, I can't train," but if you can find something that you're working towards to help, heal,
Yeah.
then it gives you that sort of sense of like, "Okay, I'm doing something," and, probably isn't gonna fix it, but it probably helps, to help heal, so
Yeah.
hopefully that'll get healed up and you'll be able to get out there again
Coming back
fairly
stronger
soon.
in 2026.
Yeah. Like, that's sometimes you learn from injuries and
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, let's dive in
Yeah. Let's jump
to
in.
planning. So, I don't know how I think the hard part, like, I know we were talking a little bit off, before the recording, is that there's so many different types of races to plan for. So,
Hmm.
you know, it's not like, okay, we're going to talk about every single scenario if somebody wants to sign up for this or that, if it's an ultra or like marathons or triathlons. So we'll try to kind of keep it simple, like broad as possible, then maybe have a few examples of what,
Hmm.
if someone, like in my case, like kind of wanting to focus on marathons again for the upcoming year. How would that look, and how many would I want to sign up for, and what am I thinking about when I'm looking at races and trying to plan?
Hmm.
And so I'm kind of putting through maybe my perspective and my thought process on how I go through planning a marathon, because I think sometimes, I mean, when you're thinking about races, a lot of times when you have those bigger goals, like long races that take a lot out of you, you cannot, if you want to do them well, you can't sign up for a marathon every month or like an ultra, like same kind of thing. Like if someone's training for like 100 miler, they may only feasibly be able to do a couple of those a year. And then, and before
Right.
it's too much on their body. It's just a lot to do. An Ironman would be another example. Whereas I think if someone's focus is on how fast they can get in a 5K, they have a little bit more flexibility because they can sign up for a 5K maybe once a month if they wanted to. I mean, maybe that's not the smartest way to go about it exactly, but you can sign up for more races throughout the year and have more opportunities to try to race. Whereas I think there has to be a
Hmm.
lot more thought process that goes into with some of those bigger goals, those big long races, because our body just can't, for most people, just you can't do maybe more than 3 marathons or 200 milers or 2 Ironmans. That's a lot in itself.
Yeah.
So, how do you go about thinking and planning for that? And can you do other goals within there? Like, if you do sign up for a marathon or two, can you still work on other things during the year? Or is that all you're putting all your eggs in one basket? That would be something to think about too. So that's kind of where I'm thinking we can go with
Yeah.
this a little bit. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Uh,
You think
I
anything you may
completely
want to
agree
make
with
sure?
you. There's only so many races that you can do, especially if you're a long course athlete. I will say that if you prefer short courses, I mean, like you said, you can sign up for a 5K every single month. One of the things that I would consider doing then is picking races that may test a particular aspect of your run. If you say, I really want to do a 5K, but I want it to be a flat course because I want to test like leg turnover and just raw speed and see how fast I can go. Then you may turn right around the next month or the next 2 months and say, I want to find a 5K that's hilly because I want to test a particular method of training for hilly routes. And so I want to approach my training this way and then use this race as a test on whether how effective that was. If it wasn't effective, then okay, are there things that we can tweak in this method of training that may prepare me better? Or did I not get the results that I wanted for something that was outside of my control? You decided to do a hilly course in August in Georgia where you may not get the performance that you want. So it may not be indicative of the success of the training. It's just the conditions that you had to face weren't optimal enough to really test the efficacy of that training method. So if you do like these short courses, you might be able to find put in a bunch of these different races in there to test different methods of training. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and just know, and the nice thing is you do it, and if it was a particularly hot day that day or something was
Yeah.
weird about the course or whatever, then, you haven't, maybe I wouldn't necessarily say I would sign up for another one the next weekend, but you could sign up a month from that date and you can race again. And so
Yeah.
you just have more opportunities to test it out. Or you can be like, I'm going to really work on speed. So I'm going to do some like track, 1 mile or a 1 mile races or something where I'm going to really work
Mhm.
on some speed stuff. And then you can go back to a 5K and you can do a lot of that, in your training because you can recover a little bit quicker from those types of races. And so I think that's the fun thing. And I think that's something people need to think about too. I mean, I think a lot of people are always picking these longer distance races because there's something I think with Ironman, like, people want to be able to say like I've done an Ironman
Yeah.
or marathons are getting I mean, they've always been sort of popular. Some in my perspective, there's like another marathon boom happening. It just seems like a lot of people are signing up for
Yeah.
marathons again. And so, but it's like I think we forget that you're kind of putting, like I said, a lot of your eggs in this one basket because you can only do so many of them a year. The
Yeah.
wonderful thing about training for 5Ks or 10Ks even, or even half marathons, because you can do a little more. I wouldn't do one every month, but you could do those a little bit more often. Is that you have more opportunities to race and hit your goal. And so if something doesn't happen on race day, like it is too hot, or there's the course was long. I don't know, like whatever
Yeah. Yeah.
little things that can come up, you can be like, "Okay, that's fine. I'm gonna just maybe race this and do the best I can, and I have another one in, like, a month," So, it's great. That's the thing I personally like about that sort of racing, and I do like 5Ks a lot. They're hard. They're just kinda, like, redlining the whole time, so they're not, like, easy. I think that's the other people forget is that a 5K or a sprint triathlon are not, like, easy. You're just going as hard as you can the whole time,
Mhm.
and some people dislike that part of it, but I kind of do like that. Um, so so don't if you're like, "Oh, my goal I just wanna do some speedy, fast stuff," or "I just wanna focus on sprints," or even Olympic or half marathon, Olympic distance triathlon or half marathon, like, that's a great goal because you have more opportunity and you can do even some shorter races in between in preparation, and it's not gonna really hurt or hinder your performance. In fact, if you're training for, like, I don't know, 10K or a half marathon, you can do some 5Ks in preparation for that, like, that type of race and still,
Yeah.
so you can do a little bit more racing, which is fun if people like to race. So, I think that my point here is just to not discount that or not be like, "Oh, that's not a worthy goal," because it totally is, and it totally can be a lot of fun. But, there isn't so much thought going into it. I mean, you can like, the way I would do it is just kinda looking ahead at some of the races I might wanna do if I was gonna
Mhm.
do, like, a 5K, what's in my area. Something I would consider for that kind of race would be if I'm going for a PR, is there an opportunity for me to travel to, like, sea level? Um, you know, somewhere where I'm not in the mountains. I'm probably not gonna go up to Steamboat or to, Vail or whatever to try to, like, get a PR in my 5K because it's higher in altitude. So am I already traveling somewhere for a vacation that I'm gonna be at lower altitude that I could take advantage of just jumping into 5K because it's easy,
Hmm.
right? That's another one you could
Yeah.
just jump into if there's so, kind of thinking about planning your race, I think for that type of thing, you can kind of plan those races around your year rather than I think some of the bigger races, you have to kind of plan your year around your life around
Yeah.
the race, which is also, a thing to consider with some of the longer distance stuff. But, there might be certain aspects like that you're considering, but you can kind of jump in to a race a little bit more easily. And like I wouldn't just leave it up in the air. I would definitely sit down and think about, what races you might want to do and maybe sign up for some to give you some motivation, but
Hmm.
to keep training. But yeah, you just have a lot more flexibility. So just
Yeah.
start there, but
So let's paint a scenario. So let's give the listeners a scenario. Let's go through, like, do you have a very specific methodological approach to setting up your calendar? I know that I do, and I think I've talked about it in another episode, but I can talk about like how I go through setting up my calendar for the year. But I'm curious if we have a similar mindset and a similar
Mhm.
approach. So how do
Yeah,
you
it's a good
set
question.
up your race calendar?
Well, because I think like I said, if it was just going to be shorter races, it would probably be more, a little bit different. But let's just say in my scenario of doing kind of in this goal of marathons, doing the marathons, because I still have this goal of getting a PR in my marathon and trying to achieve that. So the way I set it up is I'm actually sometimes thinking about the races well ahead of time. I've like as many people know who listen, I've already had to sign up for grandma's marathon. I had to commit to that because I knew that the race would sell out very quickly and it opened up in, I think it was October 1st. So it's not as though I have a lot of time to think about it. And I think that's true for a lot of the more popular races is people have to kind of, for marathons anyways, people have to kind of sign up early. So you have to be kind of thinking ahead. It's not like a lot of the 5Ks where you just jump in. You have to be planning and thinking about it. What do I want to do? And so, I'm thinking the way I plan my races is more, okay, what's a fast right now because I have this PR goal. It might change over time if I just decide to do them because I want to run them just for fun or something like that. I might be looking at what's the most scenic course, that kind of thing. But now it's
Hmm.
more like what's the fastest, what are some fast courses? So I spent some time Googling what's fast marathon courses, like, okay, what time of year? Like, I'm thinking about it's a little bit risky to do a race in June, and the grandma's is in June, but it's a fast course. So I'm trying to like all of these scenarios in my head. Well, where am I traveling? Is it somewhere that we know somebody that we could stay, or do I have family in the area?
Yeah.
So that I have people who can come spectate or that we can stay with, potentially make it into a trip. So there's a lot of things I'm kind of thinking about when I'm planning my races. Do I like how soon? So if I do one in the spring, do I want to shoot for another marathon later in the year? And then how soon? I was kind of originally thinking about doing Chicago, but that would mean I would have to jump almost immediately from my training from grandma's into another training block. So that's a
Yeah.
lot. Sometimes for me, I need a little bit of a break to do some other stuff. So it's like, okay, maybe I need to like further out. But then, like I ran into with Tucson, if I have it in December, because I'm thinking about CIM or California International Marathon next year, which is in December. But the problem I run into there is illness.
Yeah.
So that's another consideration is the time of year and training in the crappy weather, but also getting sick because I got that stomach bug before Tucson. And so, the problem with marathons again is that you put all your eggs into like you only have two big races and if
Yeah.
that's a lot of pressure almost to like think about and plan and be like, okay, what's gonna give me the best bang for my buck and the best all the outcomes s- come together so I have hopefully some good weather and I train correctly and
Yeah.
it's a fast course and I'm putting all these things together to make it into this race that I'm hoping will achieve my goal. But there's so many things that can go wrong within that and you're only racing a couple times a year. So you have I think it does warrant thinking about it quite a bit and really planning it out, the best you can so
Mhm.
that you're minimizing some of those potential risks. But that's how I go about planning the races is kind of, especially the marathon, is kind of like all those scenarios that I'm putting together of, I think just to kind of review like the course itself. Is it fast? Is it sea level? I don't run, I've run only a few races at altitude, maybe only one actually. And so most of my marathons, or maybe 2, but most of my marathons are run at sea level because it's so much harder to run at altitude, it's harder to get my PR. So it's like that,
Yeah.
um, is what time of year is the weather? Is the weather gonna cooperate? Is it gonna be a time of year that I'm more likely to get sick? Like travel, where am I gonna stay? Who's gonna be able to be available to watch me? Am I gonna have family support? That kind of stuff. So those are all things I'm kind of considering, and then I'm picking the races based off of that. And so right now I've only signed up for grandmas, but I have not signed up for CIM because I'm still not 100% certain. So I'll kind of have to come to that. Like, what
Yeah.
am I going to do in the fall situation at some point? But, but that's how I go about planning the race. And then around that, so I've got my race plan, I've got grandma's. So what is it? What is it going to look like between now and June? Am I going to race other races? Well, yes, I am, because I think it's helpful to sign up for some things along the way to kind of keep you motivated. And sometimes I'll do like a half marathon or two in that build. They're not always a full race situation. Like it might be like I'm signing up for a half marathon and it's strategically placed in my calendar and I'm gonna be doing race pace, like, so marathon race pace workout as part of a half marathon, and sometimes I'll actually do a half marathon all out in my plan depending on how it's timed, and then I also sometimes early on will do, like, a 5K or 10K, but I usually won't do those so far into my marathon, so it's usually early on, like February, March, and then probably by April, May, it's all gonna be a lot of just marathon training. I don't usually do 'cause, 5K, 10K stuff is not really conducive. You could still
Yeah.
run a 5K or 10K, but it's not
Yeah.
like I'm gonna get a great race, so just be kind of for fun. So, I'll throw in some races, but usually they're kind of like a half marathon or 2 just as a strategic thing to kind of, I mean, it's so much easier to do marathon race pace stuff if you have other people around than
Yeah.
if you're trying to do that, like, 12, 13, 14, or even longer, amount of time doing marathon pace when you're not around anyone is so hard. So I do recommend sometimes like strategically finding those types of races, and then you have to be very smart not to go to
Yeah.
actually race, to actually do it as a workout. That can be hard. But that's kind of how I plan. And I do like to have, like, I have the half marathon planned March, or yeah, is it March 29th? But I think I'm also gonna do maybe like a 5K in there. So I like to have some races signed up for too to just kind of motivate me to keep going and keep training. I
Yeah.
think that's helpful too. If your race is too far out, way far out, it's hard sometimes to find the motivation to train when you're like, oh, well, my marathon's not till June. I have all the time in the world, and then it's
Right.
April and you're like, oh no, I
Yep.
don't have all the time in the world. So I think thinking about ways things you can sign up for to keep your motivation going, especially through kind of the spring and the winter is also helpful. But that's how I go about it. I don't know
Yeah.
if you're thinking something different, or but what are your, like, when you're signing up, like, how do you go about like even picking the races or thinking about what you want to do for the year?
Yeah. I'm a data analyst, and so I've got my
Okay.
spreadsheets. So
Okay.
I'm a lot more, I feel like I'm a lot more structured. So I can tell you what I do is I have a spreadsheet and I put in every single week of the year. So it's always the Monday, the date of Monday every single year. So there's 52 lines in that spreadsheet. And then I look at back at all the races that that I would love to do. So this is my wish list. So there's no limitation. It's like, oh, that race sounds cool.
Mhm.
Put it on the list. Put it on the list. And so I have a list of like 10 races that I would love to do. And then I
Mm.
look back and I say, okay, if the races don't have an active registration, I look back and say, well, when were they offered last year? Just to kind of get an idea on where it falls within the year. So I put dates next to all of those races. And then I say, okay, then I rank them and say, which ones do I like the most, and which ones, fit my strengths, or which ones fit what I'd like to achieve in the coming years. So it's like, if I want to build, raw power on the bike, I may pick as my A race, I want a hilly course on the bike to really kind of test and push those limits. And so I may say, I may rank that one at the top. So, okay, that's a hilly race, not as hilly, that's rolling, that's flat, and put those towards the bottom. And then I just pick those races and put them into the column of the spreadsheet and just say, okay, these are all the top ranking races that I know that I want to do, that fits the goals that I have for the year or fits my life. If I have something that is particularly busy one time a year at this particular year, so I can't race, then I know that I'm not going to put a race in that block of the year. And then once I have, quote unquote, like my A races in the column, then I kind of fill in the blocks. And so I say, well, if I'm training for a half Ironman, I know that I would like to have a 16-week block to train for it. And then I color code it. So I look at the race day and I go up 16 weeks, and I color code that block in my spreadsheet. And then I say, okay, well, I know that there's no racing of any kind 3 weeks prior to an A race. And so I know that there's nothing that can be within that space. And so if I say, okay, well, I can do, if I'm training for a half Ironman, I may allow like a sprint at the front end of the training block. So I say, okay, well, are there any sprints in there that I can sprinkle in? And so that's how I go about it. Is I just kind of like fill in, I start from the A race and then I kind of work my way back. And I know
Mhm.
that, for a sprint, I can say, okay, well, I would like to have an 8-week block for a sprint. Is it an A race, or is it a B race? Is it a C race? Am I going to taper for it? Am I using it to test a particular training method? Uh, am I going for a PR in one particular dimension of the race, or for the race as a whole? Do I really kind of like want to drop the hammer and really go for it for that race? Then I may consider that to be an A race, but it's a sprint. And so that's kind of how I approach my year, and that's how I approach it with my athletes too. I mean,
Mhm.
I'll
Yeah,
have
I
them
mean,
I'll have them come to me. It's like, okay, because now is the time that I'm starting to sit down with them and say, well, what do we want to do next year? What are some of the goals
right.
that you have next year? What can we work towards? Are there any races that you're already kind of eyeballing, so that I kind of have an idea when I sit down to do like their annual training plan in pencil? Then I kind of know, okay, these blocks would be good for some strength work. Here's some good for, some speed work here. So I have a rough idea as to how we're going to approach the year, knowing that things change and, there's a
Mhm.
little bit of flexibility. But um, I definitely err on the side of racing less, because I don't find much value for me. This is just my own personal preference. If I'm racing, I'm racing. I don't like saying that, oh, this is a training
Mhm.
race for me, because I can do that for free. I can just
Yeah,
go
I think
out.
the biggest
I can just
problem
go out
is
and do it. But,
for
you
somebody
know,
that's a marathon runner. I think that's what I'm trying. I think that's true because you just have to pay for it. But for me, training for the marathon, it's a lot like those 20-mile runs that you're doing
mm,
13 to 16 miles at race pace are grueling. I mean, marathon race pace, if you're trying to get a PR or run fast, is not easy.
yeah,
It's not easy. So it to me, like I like that. I like signing up for like the half marathon and I got a pretty good deal because I saw that they were doing it and they had like this, like, oh, it's $50 for the first 50 people that signed up at like 7 a.m. this one day. So I got up
yeah,
and I signed up because I was like, yep, that's going to be my train. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to do that one as something to do with my training block. So it's not like I'm paying 100 and some dollars for a race that I'm only gonna do like a workout.
yeah,
So I kind of think about that too. I mean, there's a cost, obviously, but I think for some people, for that sort of like for a 5K, I'm probably not going to sign up for a race just to do a workout because the workouts themselves are shorter. Like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
But for like a marathon, I think that can be really helpful, even as part of like an Ironman, if you're really wanting to hone in on a half marathon and sort of doing something. I don't know how that you would build that into like a
Mhm.
triathlon sort of training situation, but I think it can be a helpful way to get the work in because I could see myself trying to do that on my own and really struggling with it because there aren't other people around and maybe not doing the full pace or really putting in the effort that I needed to put in to get that workout done.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I'll allow myself some flexibility, like I'll do the race and then the last 2 miles if I feel good, I'm like, "I'm just gonna go all out," you know?
Yeah.
So I maybe allow myself a little bit of racing, but I think yeah, I see what you're saying, like, you wanna sign up for a race and have it be deliberate, but I also think there's value in like, I'm gonna be doing a 5K, it's part of a training series that they offer through the run club here, so it's free to me. So
Oh,
it's not as
perfect.
though
Yeah.
it's so they do these cool, like, tortoise and hare things throughout the winter, and because I'm a member of the club, it's like $30 a year for the Fort Collins Run Club. I don't pay for the races, they're just these fun things they put on. But they have a 5K in January, like, the 2nd weekend of January, and the nice thing about it is I can test where my fitness is at in that. It's not a race that
Mhm.
I'm training for because I'm just maintaining my fitness is my goal right now is maintenance. So I'm not going to be doing any sort of build for it or any sort of specific um, training or speed work for it. It's just going to be like a test of my fitness, so where how well I've been able to maintain some of my speed, over the winter. So I'm hoping, I can do that race and have it go fairly well, and that'll be a good test for me as long as it's not snowy or crappy weather, then and I think that can be helpful too to just kind of jump into something, maybe you're in this maintenance mode. You can't expect those races to go great. I'm not expecting a PR by any means, but
Mhm.
it's just a way for me to jump in and do something and kind of test out where my fitness is right now. And then, let's say I wanted to continue building towards a 5K, then I would have those more A race goals like down the road, like, okay, here's where I'm at. This is where I want to be. I'm going to do like an 8 or 12 week build to do another 5K or something. But I think sometimes, adding in a race, as long as you're not, as long as you have the budget to do it, or maybe it's free, some sort of thing like I'm mentioning, it's a nice way to just test fitness and
Yeah.
not to have a training specific for that race or really even a very specific goal of like a PR, but, just to kind of see, okay, this is where I'm at. Have I been able to maintain I mean, I guess in some ways you're still testing something out, right? I mean, testing out how well I've maintained my fitness.
Yeah.
So, I'll be able to see, like, is my strategy of strength training plus just short, sort of short speed bursts of like a 30 seconds to a minute or some strides, in addition throughout the week. Is that enough? Plus a certain amount of training every week. Is that going to be enough to maintain my fitness well enough to be able to do that 5K
Yeah.
in a reasonable time? So I guess I am testing something out, suppose, so it's not like I'm just like jumping in without a goal. But I don't know. I guess it's just a different thought. I mean, I think we both kind of, it's not like we have a different thought process with it. It's just that our way of going about it is different.
Yeah.
Like thinking about the races, picking them, maybe I'm a little more strategic up front. Like it's not, it's like I've got these races I want to do, but then I'm kind of narrowing them down based off of the time between, how much time I'm going to have between
Yeah.
them, and then I'm kind of filling in, I have those big goals. I know the marathon's what I'm working at now. So those are the things I'm focusing on. And then I'm coming back and looking at what other races I might want to do throughout the year. And are they going to fit in? Like I always like to do a 5K called the Firecracker 5K July 4th. Well, that's 2 weeks after my marathon. Is that a feasible race for me to do? Like, it's gonna be a bummer because I either have to decide to just sign up and then run it and maybe not feel good, or I'm just gonna have to let that one go because it's not timing wise in a good spot for me to have a good race, right? I don't think 2 weeks after a marathon you're gonna run a fantastic 5K, let's just be honest. So, there's a lot of races I might wanna do, but I don't really like writing it all down in a training calendar, but it's more
Yeah.
maybe I mean, I do put it in Training Peaks, so I kinda see it that way visually, but I look at it and I'm like, "Nope, that's not gonna work because it's 2 weeks after my marathon," or
Yeah.
I wanna do a mile race, well, maybe that's too close. Like, is that really gonna be is training as fast as I can for a mile this next year really gonna be conducive for my a marathon? I don't, so I have to kinda think about those variables as well, and so I'm think it's similar, but just different the way I go about it, and sometimes I think of races a little bit differently than you maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I do know that triathlons are incredibly expensive. I mean,
Yeah,
even
okay,
when I
that's
was
true.
when I was actively doing full Ironman, we were paying like $800
Mm.
for a full. Now it's closer to like nine hundred to $1,000 for a full Ironman. For a half Ironman, I was paying in the neighborhood of like between 3 and 4. Now I think it's closer to like 5 and 6. So these are
Oh, yes,
significant
it's true.
investments of money. So I'm not going to drop $500 and have it be a quote unquote, you know, workout race,
Right, I got that.
So
Okay, well,
I mean,
that's true.
if
You're
it's
because I'm
different, if it's
thinking
like you got like a
a
$30
running race.
5K, then yeah, fine. You could do those all day long if you want. But
Yeah.
um, you know,
But even like some of the sprint or Olympic aren't, yeah, they're less, but they're a lot more, like at least 100 to 200, I'm thinking, for some
yeah,
of those because of the amount of effort they have to put in for each.
yeah,
It's just a lot more effort. There's a lot more going on. And so I think you're absolutely right but I mean, triathletes, I think, if you're a triathlete, I think, and you want to focus on running, the running portion of the triathlon, it might be worth it if you're like, I'm just trying to think of how I would do that. Like, because for obviously a race starts at like 7 or 8 in the morning. So you're not going to go do like a ride and then try to do the race and see how, if, you could do a half marathon. I don't know. But,
yeah.
maybe you can do that kind of thing maybe more feasibly for the running piece of it. But and maybe bike, I mean, I don't know how much gravel bike races cost. Maybe they're
I've only
expensive
done
too,
one,
but
so I don't know.
yeah, I mean, maybe that would be if it's far enough out from your race or some part during your race and you just wanna get a good ride in and you wanna be able to do it with other people, but you're not super like, I don't know, I mean, you did it kinda to race, but it was also kinda just to test it out and see what it was like, right?
Hmm.
Like, so it could be kind of fun to jump into, like, a gravel bike race and almost use it as, like, a hard training day because
Yeah,
maybe that's not you're not a gravel bike racer, but you're just jumping in 'cause wow, what a fun way to work out or something, So I'm thinking they could use some of those types of races strategically as long as you're not paying so much and you're not racing every weekend and you're not doing that,
yeah,
because yeah, the cost of it's gonna become an issue, and if you're doing that all the time and you're not actually able to then train, that's a problem. You can't do maybe a 5K every other week throughout the whole year because when are you gonna be able to actually put in a good training block to do
right.
so you do have to think about, that you need to maybe take a chunk of time to train too. Unless you don't care and you're just doing it because you love to race and then you love the atmosphere of just jumping in and running but yeah, you're right. If it's a flat 500 or like $1,000
Yeah,
race, like you're not jumping into that, every every couple months. I don't know,
right.
some people could maybe afford that, but you have to really think about, I mean, even for some of the marathon majors, like it wasn't that expensive. It wasn't that expensive, but for New York, it was 360 or $365 to
Mhm.
race. Plus, it's not a cheap place to stay. You have all the other expenses of actually getting there and then staying somewhere like those major cities like New York or Chicago or Boston. It's not cheap. So it is a lot of commitment money monetarily to
Yeah.
kind of think about. So you're not just jumping into those types of races. Those are more strategic.
One thing that I would say is that, if you're training for, let's say, that marathon, or you're training for a full Ironman, there is value, I think, in using a shorter distance race as a test of a particular training method or like a fitness gauge. So if you're training for a full marathon, and let's say, like maybe halfway through your training block, you do a half marathon
Mhm,
just as a fitness test. I think those are that's reasonable. Same for a
mhm,
full Ironman. If we're training 9 to 12 months for a full Ironman, and then I say maybe halfway through the block we'll see, okay, is there a half Ironman that you would like to do that is close and doesn't require a whole lot of travel, or is there a place that you would like to go and you turn it into a vacation? Then I think that's valid. I think those
Mhm.
approaches are
Yeah,
valid.
absolutely, yeah.
However, the one thing that I have seen is that people schedule these quote unquote fitness test races too close to
Mhm.
their race day. So whatever information that you get from that race in terms of like what are some of the holes in your fitness, what are some of the things that you need to work on, now you don't have enough time to implement any kind of adjustment to the training plan to fix those issues. So
So for, like, an Ironman, what would if somebody's signing up, what would you recommend, how far out? What would be
yeah,
the
so
ideal
if we're
timing?
looking at, let's say I'm just dealing with a 9 month training plan for full iron, then I'd say like around month 4 or 5, I would say that would be a nice sweet spot to throw in a half iron because
Mhm.
we've built up enough training volume, I think, to cover the distance. Now this is going to be dependent on the athlete and kind of like what their starting point is and what we're working on, but in general, you should have enough volume built up by that 4 or 5 month period to where you could execute a half Ironman. Now, I wouldn't say we're not going for a PR. That's not the purpose of that race. The
Mhm.
purpose is like we just want to find if there's any fitness holes and what's working and what's not working. So, you know, I'd be less inclined to say go out there and drop the hammer, but I'd say let's kind of test out our zones and kind of see where we're at. So it's going to be a controlled effort. It's not just the all out, let's see how well I can perform. So right
Right,
around that month
yeah, that
four or
makes sense.
five is a nice time to throw in that half Ironman because now you have a solid 4 months
To work
to
on it.
work on specificity for the full Ironman and fix whatever you have going that you haven't been able to build on in the first like 4 or 5 months. So you still
Mhm.
have enough time to fill in any holes, fix what's not working, and capitalize on what is, and start to build in the specificity that you need for your A race at the 9 month mark.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's kind of how I would approach it. So the way that I've approached 2026 is I'm still not certain on whether I'm going to do another half Ironman or not. When I finished Florida, I said I'm never doing another half Ironman ever again. That was incredibly brutal. But I'm warming up to it again. So it's like, oh well, maybe it wasn't
That
that
happens, you're
bad,
like, "I'm
and
not gonna
so
do."
I needed enough time. So you should never make any decision on what race you're going to do after you've just finished a race. So give yourself enough time to really
Mhm,
process how things went. So I scheduled a sprint in March, and then I scheduled an Olympic in June, and the
mhm,
half Ironman that I'm considering, which I haven't registered for, is in October. So there's a nice logical progression that I built into my calendar to where I can say I want to focus on accumulating some more speed. And so I'm going to
mhm,
use that training block of training for the sprint for the speed work and then carry that into the Olympic block and say, okay, now I've built some speed. I'm still going to try and maintain some of that speed, but I'm starting to look at a little bit more of muscular endurance with that speed work to kind of see how fast I can go for how long I can go. And
right.
then take some time to kind of like unload a little bit. And then if I start for the half Ironman, then, it would be another 16-week block. But
Block, right.
what I found is that people just jam too many races in there, so you never really
Mhm,
have a chance to train specifically for a race. There's like, there's like, well, I'm training for this race, but that means I'm either undertrained or overtrained for a previous race. And so you're really kind of like setting yourself and almost sabotaging the race that you're really working for towards
mhm,
because you've now over raced. And there
right,
I know
yeah,
that there's
makes
this
sense.
FOMO mentality of like you see your friends racing or there's a big group that's from your community that's going to the race and you want to feel like you're involved. I totally get that. I understand.
Mhm. I know we have that here, like, well, for the it's gonna happen for the racing team that I'm on here, like, and I've already had people reach out, and they're like, one of the members reach out, and they're like, "Well, we're gonna maybe focus on cross country next year and trying to go to the get a masters team together for the national cross country." And I'm like, "Oh, that sounds really cool." Like, I'd love to be I haven't raced actually, like, a cross country race since college, like, and
Yeah.
I like cross country. I just haven't raced that kind of race, and but that involves a different kind of strategy. But then I also have this goal of the marathon again, and that's kind of a competing goal, right? Like,
Yeah.
I can't do both, and so it's like I feel like there's sometimes these pressures from either your friends or your running community, like, or if you're on like a team like that, to like do these races because they're, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It does get hard because you want, I'm like, yeah, I mean, that would be really neat if we could get a team together and maybe we would get some support somehow from the community to go. I don't know. But it's like, well, then that's kind of taking away from like the intent I had of this year to be another marathon year. And, I could maybe do one marathon and be satisfied, but I'm also kind of feeling like there's a little bit of a tick-tock biological clock going on, and I'm only gonna have a few more years to really, really race and have a faster marathon. So
Hmm.
it's hard because there is that, and then that's just and then you're like, "Well, I'm just gonna try to do it all," and, it doesn't work well because you can't either one's gonna suffer, like, I'm either gonna focus on the marathon, and then I'm gonna be doing that cross-country race knowing that it's not gonna be my best effort, but that kinda sort of sucks too because then you finish it, and if you could have done better maybe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's fun.
Yeah.
So you have to you could do it, but but then maybe is that taking away because I'm traveling? I don't know how close it is. It may be too close to the CIM anyways, so or would I pick another race and then do that? You know what I mean? And then I'm travel so it's like, I guess, like, yeah, it's gonna take away from something somewhere. You're going to compromise either that particular goal of doing the cross country race because I just finished a marathon, or I'm trying to do a marathon, and I don't know. So it's like, okay, maybe like I gotta choose one or the other, but
Yeah.
you really can't do. I know I can't do probably feasibly both, and do one's gonna be compromised, right?
Yeah.
So I
I th-
think
I th-
that's important.
I think what we'll rephrase this is like you could do both, but you
You
can't
could
do
do
both. You can't do both
you do
well.
both well, yeah.
So
You can
that's the
You can
thing.
do one well if you're focusing on that, but you can't be
Yeah.
trying to train for both a marathon and a cross country race because they're kind of totally
Yeah.
different. The terrain is different, and you really do need to sort of do some running on that sort of terrain of grass, and
Hmm.
mud, maybe, depending on the course. So you don't, you don't, you're just not going to be able to do both well. And so you have to make those decisions. Do you just, again, it kind of comes down to, do you just wanna do a bunch of races and have fun and, like, you don't have a specific focus? Like, if that's fine, that if that's what you want, that's fine, but I don't think you can then expect to have goals such as, like, PRs or to really figure out, getting faster at something because or better at something, one particular thing, because it is a law of specificity, right? Like, you can train broadly,
Hmm.
but when you really have a goal, like we really wanna do something, you have to kind of become more specific with it. You
Yeah.
can't just be willy-nilly doing all like, "Oh, I'm gonna do some speed over here. I'm training for 5K, and I'm gonna do, like," I don't know, just kind of putting it all together, and there's no rhyme or reason to it because 'cause you're not gonna be very good at any one thing. I mean, you might get somewhat better if you're kinda new to running just by doing random things, but
Yeah.
over time, you have to be more specific to continue to get better. So, um, yeah, I totally agree. So I think really thinking about that, and I think it's hard because people want to do all these things, and it's so hard to think about things long term. Like, okay, maybe I could do the cross country thing next year. Maybe that would be something I could focus on 2027, but that is hard because it's 2 years. That's a
Yeah.
long ways out. And but sometimes I think, but that's part of the thing is like, oh, well, you know, I have time. Like, it's not like I'm running out of time. And then it's nice to have goals that are like a ways out because then
Hmm.
you keep wanting to train. So not feeling like you have this pressure or you have to fit it all in because, you know, I feel like you're going to have other times to do it and it's going to be okay. So,
Yeah. There's
but
something
yeah, to go back. Sorry, go
there's
ahead.
something that you said that I want to expand on, and I think it's important, is that, you said something to the extent of like, well, if all you want to do is this and that, and it triggered something in my brain, is that how you set up your calendar and the frequency in which you race is going to be a function of your goals. And I think that we've kind of said it briefly before, but if what you're looking for is you come and just say, look, man, I just want to participate. I just want to go out and just have fun. I'm not really looking for performance. I'm not really looking for the PR. I'm looking to just have the experience of doing it, or I'm doing it with my friends, or this is just kind of like just what I want to do. That's completely reasonable. Race as
Mhm.
much as you possibly want and as much as your wallet can afford, under the caveat that you are simply doing it for the experience of doing it. But I love what you said, is that you get to a point where if you start to formulate goals, like specific performance goals, you have to be a little bit more strategic in your thought. And there's going to be things that's like, oh, that sounds cool, but does that sound cool enough for me to deviate from the goal that I have, which is X?
Right.
Because, yeah,
Or do I need to reframe my goal
or
because
do
I'd
I need to
rather do
reframe it or
sometimes you
push it
have to
out
pick
further? So, yeah,
between 2. You can't do both
right.
because they're gonna be too close together, so you sometimes have to choose between 2 different things that sound cool or that, but
Yeah.
for me, it's like I really wanna I mean, who knows? Maybe I'll just, like, I'll do the grandmas and it'll go fantastic, and I'll wanna just drop the mic right there and be like, "I'm done." Like, I don't
Yeah.
wanna do any more it's hard to say kind of like with those marathons, and I know at some point I'm gonna be switching gears and moving away from the marathon and focusing on half marathons or other things, but I really wanna give it I really decided I wanna give it 1 more year of dedication, and so then when these people have these little carrots they, like, throw out there to do, it's hard, and I also feel like I also think for me there's, like, well, the next like, they're wanting me to do this, they're wanting to form a team, and they're kind of, like, maybe wanting like, wanting to do well, and so they're kinda relying on my participation, you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
I feel like that sort of guilt of, like, "Okay, not gonna do that this year," But sometimes you do have to if you have that sort of situation with races, but, I think you really have to choose what you were intending to do and not let those sorts of things derail you, especially if you're like, "This is the year I'm gonna do an Ironman," or something like that, or, "This is the year I'm
Right.
gonna do this," and then there's all these other opportunities I think can make it challenging, but you really have to focus on that goal. And it's okay to postpone things or tell people you can't do something, even though it sounds like a cool opportunity, just because, yeah, if that's what you truly want to do. And then if you're not sure, then maybe rethink your goal. But yeah, you're not doing both.
Right.
Unless that's your goal, is just to
Yeah.
participate. And I think that's fine. Like I think that's a great like, if you just love to go out and do and be there, and I think the atmosphere in the races is fun, and there's, like, a lot of just fun in that, so, you know, like, the one year I did, it was kind of like I had some training goals and maybe the way I spread the races out, I had enough time to train for one, but I did Boston, so I trained for a block for a Boston Marathon, and then I trained for a Spartan that I did in July, and then I did September, I did the Run Rabbit Run. So I did totally different things that were kind of related, but
Yeah.
not really. The Spartan was not something I was really training for. It was more of like, this is gonna be interesting. I've never done this before. So it wasn't like an A race in the sense I had any goal for it, just to finish and have fun. But, so it was all spread out in a way that I could kinda concentrate on each, it wasn't
Yeah.
all stuffed together in, like, a matter of a month. So, I think, it's okay also to have differing goals. Even thinking about the way you progress it, like, if you're like, "Well, I don't wanna do 2 marathons, I wanna kinda do 1," like, thinking about your year in terms of or, this could even be true for, like, an Ironman or half Ironman, kinda thinking about your year, okay, what time of year do you wanna do it? Do you wanna do it earlier in the spring or later in the fall? And then like you're
Mhm.
doing, kind of progressing like, starting with some speed building and then progressing into it, so you do the speedy stuff early in the year and then progress into a marathon or a half Ironman or marathon build later, or do you do, like, what I kinda did this last year is train in the spring for my marathon and then use all that hard work I did building
Yeah.
endurance and go right into a block of 5K sort of speed the speed focus after that for a while. So, I think the other thing is you can have a couple things you're focusing on. So we're not saying you have to commit to just being
Yeah.
in one bucket of like, oh, I'm going to do an Ironman or a marathon and that's all I'm doing this year. It's just that thinking about throughout the whole year, you probably, as you're building up like closer to your marathon, you can't then be like, I'm going to try to do a 5K PR, like in this
Right.
2 months before my marathon. You can strategically put in like two separate goals. You can do both a 5K PR and a marathon. You just can't do them so close together. They're going to be kind of spread out a little bit.
Hmm.
So I don't think we're also I think I don't want people to think we're saying you have to pick one one goal at all, and achieve
Yeah.
only that one goal. Like you can have a couple goals. You can't maybe have 5 race. I don't know. Like I'm trying I don't know what that would be, but but you can't you have to be strategic
Yeah.
essentially. So,
Because I know
yeah.
I know that this year I was really interested in competing in the Unbound gravel race.
Oh, right, yeah.
I mean, it's been like something that I've just been eyeballing, and I'm kind of like, it's on my bucket list. And I have a couple friends that have done it the past couple years, and I see it, and I'm just like, man, I really would love to do that. It's way outside of my comfort zone, but I love the bike, and it's been new to the gravel. But when I looked at my calendar, I was like, because it's a lottery that you have to put in order to get into Unbound. And so I said, well, should I put my name in it? And then I saw the date of what Unbound would be, and it was like a week or two before my June Olympic race. And so I was
Mm,
like, well, that could completely sabotage my June race, because if something, heaven forbid something goes wrong at that race, now everything that I would have worked on to build towards the Olympic triathlon would have been is null and void. It would have been no good. And so I'd really have to sacrifice a lot of specific training for that June triathlon in order to be fully prepared for Unbound. So even though it's a race that I really, really, really want to do, some of the other goals that I've got kind of trump it right now. And so
mhm,
maybe if I sit down for 2027, I think is like, well, maybe I won't sign up for that June Olympic and use Unbound as kind of like as what my focus would be, is just
right.
something like that. Even though it's something that I really want to do,
No,
there's
it's
nothing
hard.
wrong with waiting, because Unbound's not going anywhere. So
Yeah,
a
it's a
lot of these
popular race.
races are on multiple year contracts. So you don't have to say it's like, oh, well, this race isn't going to be there next year. Because
Right,
chances are, unless they're coming to like their end of their contract and they're in the final year of their contract, then yeah, that's valid. They may not be there next year if this is their final year. But chances are the race isn't going
you'll have
anywhere,
it.
especially
Yeah.
some of these races that have been around for years and years and years.
Mhm.
There's no reason to have the FOMO, because you'll have the opportunity. Just do it when it fits better into the lifestyle and the goals that you have.
Right.
Because
You
there's
can
nothing
focus on it,
there's
yeah.
nothing worse than training for a race and absolutely hating the the journey to get to the race. And this is where I kind of wanted to go, is that I've never done a December race before, ever. So Ironman Florida 70 was in December. It was one of the hardest races that I think I've had to train for, because it was so late into the year. Not that I lacked motivation. It was just, sometimes the weather wasn't conducive to like being outside. And so I was relegated to training more indoors than what I really would have wanted to. And it really kind of opens things up. It's like, well, what's weather going to be like? In December in Florida, it could be anywhere between, 50 and 80. That's a
Mhm.
pretty huge
Yeah.
swing. on how I'm going to
Yeah,
prepare for this and build my expectations.
it's true.
So, what I find many people doing is that they'll sign up for a race as motivation to stay engaged during winter months. So they'll say,
Mhm.
I'm going to sign up for a race in March and April just so that I have a carrot to stay active during the winter. And I can I would put money on it that those people don't enjoy the training process as much as if it was a race, if they just really wanted to train, not using the race as, I have to train because I have this race. It's I want to train for this race. So there's that
Yeah,
different
that makes
mindset,
sense.
and using a race as your carrot to do something else may not give you really the motivation that you think you're going to get out of it, because there's still
Yeah,
going to
I
be
think
plenty of
yeah,
excuses to say, oh, I'm skipping this
I might do it, yeah.
session, or oh, it's not all that important, and there's a holiday party, or it's the holidays, and I'm going to eat extra, and I got all these parties to go to, and then you got to fit yourself into that lycra spandex outfit in March. It's a rude awakening.
Right.
So
Yeah. I see what you're saying. I think, like, it's hard because I do think it's hard so, like, not having a race I mean, maybe March is but yeah, not having a race, I think it's hard for people because if it's too far out, if their race is too far out, I think then they can be like,
yeah,
well, I am gonna skip my workout and go to the holiday party, or I'm gonna, I don't have anything pending, I have time, plenty of time. And maybe I think the way we think is like, I know if I don't stay consistent and don't build those like bricks now, like, you know
hmm
what I mean? Like the foundation now, like I'm not going to be able to hit my goal in June. And I'm already thinking about that. And I have the ability to think far ahead and be motivated because I don't want to lose fitness. And I have worked so hard to be where I am right now in terms of like the speed that I've built and now the strength that I'm building. And I don't want to lose that. And that's very motivating me not to lose the fitness. But
yeah.
so some people don't have that motivation or they struggle. So I think having a race, I just don't know if having, like, a big ra like, like, a very intensive training type of situation where it's like a half Ironman or a marathon in March is a very good idea, personally.
Yeah,
I would not schedule it there's races in February, like the Houston and, like, a few in January, February, and, some in March, but I personally do not even consider those types of races because of that training during this time of year sucks. But I do think having, like, a couple, like, shorter races maybe, like, because
yeah,
you still can do some you still have the motivation to do training, but you're not like, "Oh my gosh, I have to do this, 3-hour, 20-mile run and the wind is blasting," and, like,
hmm
like,
yep,
for a marathon, I just try to like, we've had some bad wind here in Colorado and Fort Collins in the Front Range. It's like, imagine trying to do that, have a 20-mile run on my calendar, and I have to do that, and I'm not doing that on the, treadmill, and it's just miserable. But if it's a 10K or half marathon, it's a little more manageable, right? I
yeah.
can do part of it outside, part of it inside. It's manageable. So I think I don't I think it's I kind of disagree, but I think it's not that I think I agree with you for some of the longer races that it's probably not a good time of year for something that's gonna be a lot to take on, where you have to do a lot of that training in the terrible weather, but a little something short or something, manageable like I don't know how many sprints they have in March and stuff, but like a sprint or Olympic or even just a running related race that you could hop into. If you're a triathlete, you can still do some running related races just to keep up with your fitness and still have at least if you're out there running, at least you're doing something. So,
Yeah,
I
I
know.
think where I was going is because races like Ironman Texas is,
Oh
I think
yeah.
it's in like March or April.
Yeah.
That's one of the main reasons I will not do that race. I will not race Ironman Texas because I know what the training is going to be like in preparation
Right.
for that. If you
But the
do,
people that live in Texas, this is
they
their
they probably love
in
it, but
Arizona, this is like their
if
time of year. They're just like fan that the weather's great.
Yeah. If you don't love being on
I
the
think.
bike trainer, then Ironman Texas is not the race for you. Because
Probably
chances
true.
are you're going to be spending more of your time on the trainer because you're training through the winter months, especially if you
Yeah.
live like where I live out in Virginia, or out there on the East Coast, down towards the southern part, or even the northern part. It's going to be challenging to really train for that race. Because if you start to
Right.
think, it's like, well, what is a 6 to 7 hour trainer ride going to feel like? It is a lot different than a 6 or 7 hour ride outdoors.
Well, it's like a 20-mile run on the treadmill.
Absolutely. And I think that was kind of what I'm thinking. It's like, are you really going to? Because I know that I would not enjoy the journey. I would not enjoy the
No.
training for something like that if that's the way it had to go. So really kind of think about, how do you like training? And then find races that are conducive to that style of training. So if you say,
Or yeah, what
I
when
like
the
to train
weather is
outside
nice.
a lot, then maybe finding like late summer, late summer races is a
Fall
good fit for you.
or late
Or like a
spring
fall.
maybe, yeah, like or later spring. Like for me, like the June is a little better. June 20th is a little better than May. It's not that much difference, the end of May, but it was hard last year when I had to start training for that marathon in February.
Yeah.
Because I did have to start and it wasn't doing 20 milers, but there was some foul weather and there was definitely some training runs on the treadmill. I did it, but it's definitely hard, and then when I did Boston that one year, which is in April even, that was not a fun one. That's kinda partly why I'm not sure I wanna do Boston anytime soon again because it's just hard to train because 'cause you're
Yeah.
training through you're ramping it up really you're having to get going with it in January. You're not doing your longest stuff, but you have to start your training block really January. And by February and March, you're really getting up there, right, in
Hmm.
your mileage, so it's a hard one. It's a hard one to train for. I
Yeah.
mean, but if you it's also one that's kind of iconic, so I get it.
Yeah.
If you
Just
have
just
to,
keep it just keep in mind that race day is one day. But
right.
the training to get to race day lasts weeks and
You
months.
wanna enjoy it. It has to
That's
be
what you
yeah,
want
you
to
wanna
enjoy.
enjoy
You
it.
want to
Yeah,
enjoy the lead up to the race, because the race is
that's
just,
true.
it's just the present that you get at the end of all the work that you've done. And if you don't enjoy the work that you put in, it makes that present just feel kind of cheap at the end. It's just like, and you're less
Yeah,
likely to sign up
yeah.
for something in the future because you're like, that was my experience. I don't ever want to do that. And so I think it hurts the health of our respective sports, with people picking races where they just don't enjoy the training process
The
of
training, yeah.
getting there.
You have to think about where you live and the feasibility of yeah, the thing is sometimes we get really caught up in, like, "This is gonna be fun," or I wanna stay motivated over the winter, and we don't then sort of think about the process so much. We're so
Yeah.
worried about the outcome, and we're not thinking, "Oh, man, I know that that day is gonna come where the weather is really bad and I have this long ride or run or something, and I'm gonna have to figure out how to manage that on the trainer or on the, treadmill or somehow I'm gonna get this in or I'm gonna have to go out and try to run in this foul weather, and it's gonna be miserable the entire time, you know? Like, it is, we have to be honest. So, you have like, try to picture what the weather is gonna be like and really try to visualize it
Yeah.
like, okay, what's it gonna be like that day when I'm gonna have to do this hard thing on and sometimes that happens even in the best of times of year, but it's much more likely to be more often when it's that, winter time. So, yeah, I think that's another good point. Like, is there any other I'm trying to think if there's any other, like I know we've kinda gone already a little bit of time, but I'm trying to think if there's any other avenues of, like, things to keep in mind with this schedule, and I'm not sure.
I can't think of anything else that I do or that I work with my athletes on in terms of formulating a race calendar. I think bottom line is that you sit down with, okay, what are my goals for the year? What do I want to build on? What are the strengths that I have? What are the other aspects of my life that require my time? And then pick races that are conducive to those situations. And
Yeah.
I think that there's so many ways that I'm not saying that my way is the way. And I don't think you're saying that your way is the way either, because it's so individualistic. Like what we say every single episode that we talk about topics is like, okay, well, this is really kind of individual specific.
Uh-huh.
There's so many different ways to set up a calendar. And if it works for you and it meets kind of like what your expectations are and what you want to get out of the experience, then who's to say that your way of approaching that race is wrong? Because it works for you.
Yeah,
So,
some people just sign up for races and, they
let's
wanna
just,
travel
yeah, let's
somewhere.
go. Yeah.
They're like, "I wanna go to Germany," and they're like, they look for races or marathons in Germany. I don't know, it's an example, like, or
Yeah.
Berlin or, are they doing all the marathon majors and they're trying to fit as many in as possible. I don't know, like, it's very specific times of the year and very and that's their goal, and so they're formulating but some people do just, like, they wanna go on vacation, and they're like, "Well, maybe there's a race there," and that's how they're formulating their
Yeah.
plan, and that's cool too. Someday, maybe I'll be at that point where I'm just like, "I just wanna go somewhere, and I kinda wanna just do a race
Yeah.
for fun, and I'm just gonna sign up for something, and we're gonna go there."
Yeah.
That's my future goals.
Yeah, so I didn't want the listeners to think it's like, okay, well, this is how I have to pick my races and how
Yeah, yeah.
I just wanted to make sure that we brought up some scenarios that we've come across that have either worked or haven't worked for us individually, or
Mhm.
things that haven't worked out so great for our athletes, or things that worked out really, really well. So again, this is just giving you some food for thought. When you go to sit down, it's like, okay, well, I remember they were talking about, I need to enjoy the journey and enjoy the process. Am I going to really enjoy this lead up to this race if it's this time of year? Or, I don't particularly like the trainer, I want to ride outside, so maybe that means I need to look for races later in the year, stuff like that.
Or
So
yeah. Or
we
you're racing so much that you're not,
that you're really
you know
not really seeing what it is that you're
Mhm.
truly capable of. And I
Right.
think that's
Mhm.
important, because that's what keeps people coming back. If you can really get a glimpse of what it is that you're capable of doing, it really inspires not just you, but it inspires others that are watching you and following along and supporting you. And who's to say that, that experience doesn't bring somebody else into the sport? It's like, look, man, I followed them. I saw what they were doing. I think that that's awesome. I want to try that.
Mhm.
So if you're just racing just for racing's sake, I hope that you'll sit down and think, okay, why am I racing so much? Or why am I racing so little? And give that
Oh,
some
yeah,
really
that's
kind
good.
of introspective thought.
Yeah, and that's true. Are you not I mean, it's okay to just enjoy the running and the biking and the swimming or the run or whatever you're doing just because you wanna do it, but if you're not signing up for that's another piece is
Yeah.
are you afraid to sign up for things? Like, are you afraid to see
Are
what
you
might
afraid of
happen or
failure?
yeah.
Are
Mhm,
you
very
afraid
and
of
then that's
putting in
another
all this work?
aspect.
And I'll be completely honest with you. I'm in that bucket. I can say that I've been through that, where it's just like, I'm afraid to fail at this race, even though I've put in all the work that I could put in. So I wouldn't sign up, because
Mhm,
I didn't want to have the chance of not doing well. And that is something that I think that I've worked on over the years, and trying to get past, because I've realized that I learned more out of the stuff that didn't go well than things that did. And
mhm.
so I
And
think I
yeah, I
think the
think
stuff that didn't go well keeps me coming back, because I want to try and fix it. I want to improve on it. And it's not like, man, I killed that bike. I'm gonna come back next year and do just as well.
right.
Nobody
Yeah.
says that. If you
Well,
say,
they're like, "Yeah, I wanna do
this went
better." Yeah, or I
completely
wanna do
wrong, so I want to come back next year for redemption. I think that
right,
that later scenario is the more realistic scenario.
right.
So,
Yeah, and I think, like, I can relate to that because when I had Theo, I was really out of run shape and I started running again, but I think, well, 2020 kind of knocked I was kinda considering racing again, and then that sort of
yeah.
put a damper in that or whatever. It didn't motivate me, obviously, but then it took me a little bit of time, like a couple years of just running for fun before I committed again to race because I was afraid, I think, that I was gonna be slower than I was before, and I
Mm,
didn't it was like that pressure of I don't want to show up and kind of be mediocre. I want to be good.
Yep.
But I think the problem is then I wasn't training for it. So it was like finally when I signed up for something, then I was motivated to actually put in the not just run for fun every day and just do whatever I felt like, but I was actually like able to strategically start training. And then that really brought back that love of like, oh, like getting better. And then,
Hmm.
yeah, some of my races early on when I started running again weren't the fastest I've ever been, but it was kind of cool to sort of see my progress as I started to build my fitness back. So I just encourage you, like, don't be afraid, sign up.
Yep.
I get it, but even if you've just had a baby or you're not going to be as fast as you were because an injury or something, that's okay because you build from that and you do learn from it and you can then watch your fitness grow as you then become more and more fit. And then maybe you'll be able to get back to some of those times that you were able to get
Yeah.
before. So, yeah, I guess we did we didn't even cover we were thinking about the overachievers, the
Yeah.
signing up for too many. And I'm glad we got to cover the not, I wouldn't call it underachievers, but the people that are afraid
The
to sign
hesitant,
up. The
the hesitant
hesitant ones.
achievers. Because
Yes.
I'll be honest, that's the way that I felt about training for Florida. When I had the opportunity to do Florida, I was like, I really don't. I'm scared. I don't want to do this. I had no plans to do a half Ironman, and I'm just coming back into the sport after 4 years and surgeries and everything else. What happens if I go and I fail and I don't do well? I don't meet my own expectations. What is that going to do to my motivation and my self confidence? And
Mhm.
I still said, look, I'm not going to allow fear to dictate what it is that I do and don't do. So despite the fear, I went ahead and signed up. And I can honestly say that the process of training for Florida was the most life altering, introspective period of my entire endurance career. Over the past
Mm.
10 years that I've been
Wow.
doing this, I can say that training for Florida changed me completely. I learned so much about myself during this process that there's nothing that I would trade for that experience. Those 16 weeks that I endured training for Florida were by far the most difficult in terms of like emotions and spiritually and to a certain extent physically. And despite the fear and despite you know, if you go and look at the results that I had, you would say, well, he didn't really have all that great of a day. But I think that what I walked away from that race with is way more valuable than the time that they said that I did it in. And it's worth its weight in gold. So
Yeah, I think
if you're afraid to pull
that's
the
the way to
trigger
look
on
at it.
something just because that you're afraid of what result you could possibly get, then ignore it because the journey is way more important and way more valuable than the result could ever be.
Right, absolutely. That's a great way to end it.
So
I love
let's
that.
wrap this thing up. So this has been episode 55 of the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast, where we've talked about how to go through your race calendar formation and things to consider. And hopefully we will see you out on the race courses next year in 2026. I want to thank you guys for tuning in. We greatly appreciate your support of the podcast. Don't forget that if you're enjoying the content that we're coming out with and you enjoy the topics that we have on these casts, please feel free to leave a comment and a review wherever it is that you consume your podcast materials. It is greatly appreciated, and we thank you so much for the support that you show us. So until again next time, I'm your host, Coach Justin, along with Coach Katie. We thank you from the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast. Happy training, everyone. See you,
Bye.
Katie.
See you later.
That wraps up today's episode of the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast. Endurance sports have a way of teaching us patience, humility, and resilience, lessons that carry far beyond the workout. Progress in endurance sports doesn't come from shortcuts. It comes from consistency, discipline, and doing the work when it's not glamorous. Wherever you are on your endurance journey, keep trusting the process and honoring the work you put in each day. If today's episode resonated, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone to help on their endurance journey. Don't forget to join the conversation on our social sites to help build and foster a community where we all learn and support one another. We'll be back with more stories and insights from Coach Justin and Katie. Until then, visit the podcast website at theenduranceathletejourney.buzzsprout.com for more episodes from the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast. Have questions or comments about the podcast? Feel free to send us an email at theenduranceathletejourney@gmail.com. For all things coaching, visit Coach Katie at fuel2run.com and Coach Justin at tabularosaracing.com. Again, thank you for listening to the Endurance Athlete Journey podcast, and remember to find joy in the journey.